Good afternoon, and to the folks of us joining us on our internal live stream, also welcome. We're very keen on having members of the San Francisco Opera here with us today. They'll be discussing their world premiere of Two Women. To kick things off, we do have Kip Cranna, the dramaturg of the San Francisco Opera, and he'll be leading this moderated discussion. So please join me in welcoming them to Google. Thank you.
Thank you, Cliff, and thanks to Google for inviting us. We're thrilled to be down here to tell you about this exciting opera, La Ciociara. Let me introduce the people who are involved so centrally in creating it, and I'll just go down the row here. Next to me is the scriptwriter, which is sort of an unusual thing for an opera to have, and we'll talk about that. He is an Italian author and has had a career as a journalist and is now a screenplay writer, scriptwriter for Italian cinema and TV. Luca Rossi. Thank you, Luca, for being here.
Hello.
And next to him, of course, is the important figure of all in putting on a new opera, our composer, who has composed more than 16 operas. He's one of Italy's most preeminent composers of the day, and we're so thrilled to be working with him, Marco Tutino. And in the middle, the guy whose fault this all is, it's his idea to do an Italian opera, and we're doing one. He is our music director at San Francisco Opera and the conductor of this opera, and we're so thrilled that he has gotten us to do this project. It's been a great challenge for San Francisco Opera. Nicola Luisotti. And then we have one of the two women that this opera is about. She sings the role of Rosetta, the young girl who goes out into the countryside with her mother during World War II and faces all kinds of trials and tribulations. She had a wonderful debut with us on Saturday night. Sarah Shafer. And then we have the tenor, who of course is the hero. The hero is always a tenor in Italian operas, almost always. And he had a great success singing the role of Michele, who is our idealistic hero in this story, who unfortunately meets a sad end. But then again, it's opera, so what can you do? He's the Greek-American tenor Dimitri Pittas. And Nicola, let's start with you, because this whole idea started with you. Where did the idea come from to commission an Italian opera from Marco Tutino?
I think that San Francisco Opera has Italian roots with Gaetano Merola, that he was music director of this company, intendant, right?
Yes, he founded the company in the late 20s, early 20s rather.
And I think that an Italian opera with an Italian music director needs a new Italian opera to be performed for the first time. If we go in the past, in the United States, the last opera that was performed in the United States for the first time was Il Trittico by Giacomo Puccini. It was 1918, after 97 years, finally. We have another Italian opera with a great composer, with an Italian great composer, that is Marco Tutino. I'm very honored to have done this opera for the first time here, for the history of Italy, but for the history also, the mutual history of the United States.
Now, had you worked with Marco before this?
I work for some things, and I have conducted in Napa Valley in 2007 a music form ballet from Richard III. It was pretty beautiful music, and if we can still use this word, I mean beautiful music. I'm proud to say that, because in the past decades, we used to shock people instead to delight them. So I think that with La Ciociara, we delighted all the audience also, even if it's a great drama. But inside of this music, there are beautiful lines that people will remember for their life. And this will save Marco Tutino and his own music.
Marco, what did you think when you were asked to write an opera for an American company? Was this the first time you had done that?
Yes, an opera, yes, the first time. Well, I don't know if I am a great composer, as Nicola told.
You are.
I think that we have to wait at least 100 years to know exactly. And this is right for all the kind of arts. we have a lot of rush to decide. Oh, yes, no, yes, no. I thought to my job in a very concrete way, because I think that solid way, because the opera composer is a specialized composer who has to face a lot of dramaturgical problems, and you must do as well as you know. And I think that I accepted this job with the knowledge of the difficulties and the knowledge of a new public, but I was very, very confident about the professionality of the theater, and the show was absolutely perfect. All the theater worked so hard, and of course I based my hope in Nicola because I knew which kind of conductor he actually is.
We should talk about this choice of subject matter. Where did that idea come from? Excuse me, to use La Ciociara, the novel, as a source for your opera.
La Ciociara, because a night at the dinner with Marco and Gabriele Lavia, is a friend of us and is a great actor and great director. We were talking about how it would be possible to renew the repertoire. You know, the problem with the opera today is that the repertoire is stuck. When we finished with Puccini, La Turandot in 1926, then something happened. Curiosities. The new composers didn't find the right way to proceed from the roots of their fathers, composers like Wagner, Strauss, Mozart, Verdi, Donizetti, Bellini, Weber, whatever. And at some point, we have after the second school of Wien, that is Schoenberg, Berg, and Weber, that they did fantastic things in the middle of the two wars, the first global wars and the second global wars. Then something happened. What's happened? That people think that the catastrophe was close to happen. The war, for sure, after the Second War, were going to finish. An atomic, nuclear war were close to come. In the 60s, we really were scared about this. And all the music was talking to us about catastrophes. Every year, this is going to happen, it's going to happen. And nothing happened like that. But still, we believe in this kind of music that the world is destroyed. It's not. There are many problems in the world, but there is also people that believe in the future. Throughout the past, throughout the present, throughout the future. And at some point we have to change our line because we are losing an important presence in theater. Who pay the tickets? It's very simple. Critics, they don't pay tickets, for example. They receive credits. It's true. So the audience pay the tickets, and why they have to pay $300 to listen to something that they will never understand? Why? I would like not to pay something for so many money for something that I will never understand. I will prefer to go to the movie. I will go to the musical. If you take a look at for example, in New York, Metropolitan Opera House is struggling to sell tickets, struggling. But there are more than 30 theaters of musicals, more than 30, every night full of people.
On Broadway.
We have to speak with ourselves about that. So La Ciociara I'm coming. La Ciociara is done because we want back the audience. It's wrong? I don't know. But we try Marco Tutino tried to compose something that was beautiful for the history, for the people, for the musicians to play, for me to conduct. He has written an opera in an Italian tradition. Don't think this is a mistake, but this is a challenge to this today.
Well, this brings us to the story itself, La Ciociara, a novel by Alberto Moravia, published, I believe, in 1957, made, of course, into the famous film in 1960, directed by Vittorio De Sica, starring Sophia Loren, who won the Academy Award. First time that award had gone to an actor in a non-English speaking role. Very exciting. Luca, tell us your story about getting the rights to this novel, which was not an easy thing.
Well, that was just the beginning of the story. The story was nice because we were with Marco in a small trattoria in Rome, and he had Nicola. They had this idea of the Ciociara, and there was the problem of the rights because they belonged to the family, the two women actually, the two widows.
Moravia has two widows, both with interest in
and
his estate.
we just saw one of these two widows, Carmen Llera, getting in a house, in a door of a palace there, and so we thought, why don't we leave a letter to the doorman, and we start the thing, and the real story started from there. Then we had a lot of troubles with the second widow, but that's not so important. But
she agreed eventually. That's what's
in
important.
the end, yes. But what I would like to say is that it was very important. Marco's music is a narrative music. It has a narration in it. We know what contemporary music did. They constructed the structure. Marco has a structure, but to have that, you have also to have a narrative structure inside the opera. So, the Ciociara is a wonderful book, a wonderful movie, but it lacks a lot of, let's say, twists, a lot of important moments, and it lacks a real love story. It lacks the usual things that you find in movies, in fiction, and so forth. So that was my role. Marco asking me, since I'm a writer and a screenwriter, so I know in some way the twist, how to build a story. So we had to invent a part of the story, based, of course, on the La Ciociara. And we invented Giovanni, which in the book and in the movie is a very minor character. He developed in the villain. But still there, since there is, again, I want to stress this, there is a narrative in the music of Marco. And that's the avant-garde to my eyes now, because after we deconstructed music, now we have to build music. So, in this way, this narrative of the music, it's in some way, it's intermingled with the narrative of the story. That, I think, it's a very simple story under many perspectives. It's simple because it's melodrama, we cannot have too many nuances. But still, it has a dignity as a story, and I could see it in the public, in the audience, and on the night of the premiere. They were really following the story, and there was a sort of suspense in some moments. You really don't know how it goes to end. I think this was a very nice success for all of us. And I think that this is the path that modern music should pursue. In fact, you're telling a story to the people. Also through the music, you are making the narrative, which is what human beings do since their beginnings. They always tell stories. And I think that Ciociara is a wonderful story. Thank you.
We want to hear from our singers, but before we do that, excuse me, I think it would be useful to watch a little clip that talks about the kind of central element in the drama. Most Americans, I think, learn about World War II in some detail, but not about the war in Italy, which is, of course, what this opera is about, as is the film and the novel. It deals, of course, with the end of the war after Mussolini has been put in prison. The Germans have occupied Italy. The Allies are trying to get to Rome. They invade at Anzio. There's a landing there. There's the famous Battle of Monte Cassino, which was essential in breaking through what was called the Gustav Line, the Germans' defensive line protecting the north of Italy. And very central in winning this battle were some 8,000 Moroccan troops, French-speaking Moroccan troops called Goumiers. And we're going to watch a little clip of a video that's on YouTube. If you just Google Goumiers, G-O-U-M-I-E-R-S, you'll see this longer documentary, but we're just going to watch a few seconds of it, which talks about how once these troops had won their battle, ran wild and raped and pillaged, quite literally. And this is part of an interview with some of the victims of this tragedy. So I have to tell you this story, since I work with commissioning new operas. When we saw the first draft of the scenario from Luca, we thought, oh, violence from Africans, and we were worried about political correctness. And we said, do they have to be Africans? Could they be Germans, maybe? Yes, Australians, who knows? Not knowing, as Americans don't know, the central role that this tragedy had in Italian sensibility and Italian memories of the war. And so this is, of course, the central scene. And that brings us to you, Sarah, because you are one of the, your character is one of the women victimized by these characters in the opera. And you have a great transformation to go through from an innocent 16-year-old girl to the girl that survives all this. Do you want to talk about how you pull that off dramatically and vocally?
Sure. It's a big, it's definitely a big transformation that the character of Rosetta goes through. You know, she starts the opera very, very shy and very obedient to her mother, very, quite a good girl, very religious. And you see in the second act, when bombs start to go off, that she turns right to religion, which shows a lot about her character. And then as the opera goes on, all these things start to happen to her, and Michele gets arrested, and they become alone, and then they're attacked, and there's a huge change that goes on after the rape. She's completely traumatized, and it sort of flips her character 180 on her head, and she rebels, and all this change happens, and she looks for affection not from her mother but from men. And so it's maybe the most difficult acting role that I've had to play so far in my career, which I'm very early in my career, but it's definitely, it's so much of an acting role. She's on stage a lot. And the role, the singing that Marco writes for Rosetta is completely indicative of what her character is going through at that particular moment. So it's very natural to play the evening, because you feel what's happening, right up to it. You don't have to put on anything to play this character. What happens is it's right there for you in the music.
Now you're playing opposite Anna Caterina Antonacci, one of the premier Italian artists in the world today, and
yes,
a legendary stage animal actress. And she's also simultaneously doing the role of Cassandra in Berlioz's The Trojans here, so she's quite busy. Tell us about working with her and creating this onstage relationship.
It was wonderful. It was very intimidating at first, because I had never seen acting like that in opera before, and I didn't know quite what to make of it. But I learned so much from just watching her. and it helped my own acting, and I kind of found a place where I could sort of work with her and sort of imitate and copy some of the things that she was doing to make them seem like they're related, but what she can just stand on stage completely still, and it's so moving. You can be so still in the things that you act, and so it was a huge learning experience for me, singing and just being with her. I think it's grown me a lot as a singer and as an actress too.
I would have to say, just as an audience member, she is the kind of artist you can't take your eyes off, and it's just
stunning. She's
amazing.
Beautiful.
So Dimitri, you're the love interest. And you have a transformation as well, going from a kind of a bookish, shy professor to a genuine hero who does a great sacrifice for the sake of love. Talk about that characterization.
Sure. Yes, it's true. There is there's a big journey that goes on with Michele, even though he's not on from the beginning of the opera, and he's certainly not towards the end of the opera either. But these two women come into his life and affect him in such a way, and it's the journey is unique, I think, to a lot of tenor repertoire. It's true, but it's also I love it. I think that it makes a lot of sense within this story also, particularly because of the relationships that Marco has managed to maintain between all of the characters, and it really is a pleasure. What he decides and that definitive moment when he sacrifices everything for the sake of the lives of these two women. It's very strong. It's very poignant to me on stage every night, and also it's a part of the show that I just can't get out of my head musically. I just keep on hearing it over and over and over, which is testament to wonderfully written opera as well. So I enjoy going through that journey every night that we do it.
And there's quite a vital scene toward the end. We've already mentioned what happens to the women, and more or less simultaneously, you're being prepared to be executed for treason, having saved and helped an American soldier, and the Nazis have arrested you for doing that. So this all happens more or less simultaneously in alternation, really, with the scene with the women. Can you talk about how you pull that off emotionally?
Yeah,
dramatically?
sure. It is the way Marco put it together is really stunning. It's almost as if you can imagine this split stage where these two really shocking incidents are happening at the same time. And when we first started putting it together, we actually tried to watch what was happening on the other side of the stage, just because it fed me and it fed my emotions. Because even though Michele is going through something really terrible, to know that the people that he cares most about are going through something that is infinitely more difficult than what's about to happen to him, it really does. It feeds my reason for what I have done and the decision that I've made, and musically, it's very clear, it's very splendid. It's the highlight of the evening, I think, also, and the production is fantastic too. The way that it cuts that scene so perfectly, but it blends them together in such an amazing way. It's really something to be a part of every night.
I'm curious how the decision came to do it this way. Luca, did this idea come from you to do these two scenes in alternation rather than just doing one whole scene?
We were
the other?
Together, me and Marco, I remember. I think I'm right, Marco, no? We decided, since the opera is so crowded with facts, it's a real story, it's like a fiction, so there are a lot of things going on.
It's a lot of action.
In that moment, the problem was that, as Dimitri said, this is the highlight. But we have two highlights. One is the death of the good guy. The other is the rape. So it's very difficult. Which one you put first? if you put first one, the other is going to be lessened, destroyed in some way. So the idea was to put them together in the same moment, so you can switch from one to the other with the same kind of tension that grows, and then it collapses when the thing is over. I think that Francesca Zambello, the director, did a very good job in freezing those moments. So you, with the lights and the freezing of the actors, you are even more into the tension of the scene. And then what's even more interesting, I think, is that after this, you have a whole other scene. I mean, in a normal opera, this is the end of the opera. The guy is dead, women rape it. Okay, goodbye.
Butterfly kills herself. The end, right?
No, there is a whole new field. That's what makes people, I think, really curious, because what happens now? I mean, the story is finished. No, it's not finished. It starts here again. So I think it's really the turning point of the story is that moment, and was beautifully done.
I'm glad you touched on that subject. That this isn't a story about two tragedies and the curtain comes in. There is another story about reconciliation and about hope and about remembered love that gives people the strength to go forward. Sarah, talk a little bit about that, would you, about how this scene works for you as you come out of the sort of trance you've been in following the violence, and we're not sure exactly what happens next, but we get an idea.
Yeah, the last scene is a huge one for me in terms of character. She goes into this, at least from Rosetta's point of view, she is away from her mother, and she doesn't speak to her, she doesn't acknowledge her. There's, the rest of the town is joyous because the Americans have come, and so you're back in this seeming triumphant scene, but having seen the previous scene, there's a strange feeling about it because, this has just happened, and how can the world go on when this event has happened? And
she blames her mother for
she blames her mother. I think she also blames herself, but she won't admit it. She blames herself for Michele's arrest, and there's all of Michele also in the back of her mind. And then, of course, throughout the scene, we find out that Giovanni comes in, and we find out that Michele is dead, and then Ciociara relates that to Rosetta, which kind of brings her back to herself, and you kind of see the collapse of her put-on rebellion. It's not really who she is. It's just become this wall that she doesn't want people to see her anymore. But that all comes down in the with the information that Michele is dead, and so then she has no one. She has not a wall. She doesn't have Michele. Rosetta has sort of this crush on Michele, I think, through the whole thing, and so with all that gone, she turns again to her mother's, and there's it's beautiful reconciliation at the end, which you don't get in the book or in the movie, and it brings such hope, as you say, to the end of the piece. And the music that Marco writes is so amazing at the end, and you sense that they're off on a new adventure, not in the same way that they have been in Act 1, but that they actually are two women having gone through something together, starting anew and going on with their lives. So it's very beautiful.
Yes, please.
It's true. What's very important is that in the final, the reconciliation is the heritage, is Michele heritages. And in fact, we see Michele in the back. But
like a vision of him.
He left something. When the opera is finished, they say nothing is left. No, something is left. Is the heritage of Michele. That's, if we want to say in common words, it's goodwill, to be good, to try to think that the world is not only of smart asses, but is also of the good ones. And in the last scene, as we designed in the beginning, then there were problems for the production, but there were a group of kids playing war in the last scene, in the very last moment, and one of these little kids fell and hurt himself, and the ghost of Michele was passing by, was helping this little kid and bringing him away off the stage, and that was the meaning. The good that is in Michele saves also Ciociara and Rosetta, that they get together again. So that's, I think it's a very profound message, and maybe we have to a little bit to work for the next production to make it more clear, but I think it was enough clear.
You mentioned in the next production, we know that this opera will be performed in Torino in 2018, and we hope other places as well. There's a metaphor of a flower associated with the memory of Michele, also associated with the love of Michele and Ciociara. Was that your idea? Where did that come from?
Well, actually, I found the botanical. I was looking on the internet because we wanted a flower, something that could be in winter in Ciociara. It was very difficult. There is nothing in winter in Ciociara. But in the end, I came out with this fiammella, we call it in Italian, that has, what's the name, the botanical name? You wrote it.
Clematis flammula.
Okay.
For you botanists in the audience.
And by chance, I discovered that this thing, in some cases, can flourish also in the late winter. So the idea was perfect. It's called fiammella, that means little fire in Italian. So it's perfect for a love scene. Nothing better.
Right. And this is an idea that's not in either the book or the film, but is especially for the opera. We're going to give people a chance to ask questions, and I'm sure all you Google people know to go to the microphone to do that. Let me ask one more question before we do that. Marco, we have many sort of traditional Italian Roman tunes or poems included in the opera, and particularly an Italian popular song from World War II. Can you talk about the decision to use that?
Well, this popular song was used also by De Sica when he did the movie, because this song was a symbol of the end of the war in Italy. Everybody sang the song on the street and on the radio. It was very, very popular. I think that it could be a good idea to use this theme for, of course, to use the old songs at the end, but to use in a certain way little pieces, little portion of the song, and make them floating in the score for all the opera, for all the duration of the opera. So when you hear at the end the music, the original music of the song, in a certain way you recognize it, and you don't know why. But
and no critic understood this. Not one single one who said, "Oh, there is a strada nel bosco everywhere." No one. Just to tell you the truth.
it's too difficult.
All right. Do we have any questions out there? Cliff, do you have questions from our Google people?
I guess we could start out just by talking, as you look at the opera season calendar and the season subscription. What responsibility do you have to continue pushing the envelope forward with new compositions such as these? How do you balance that with folks that want to harken back to the the turn of the century Italian operas, and how do you approach that balance?
And Nicola, can you talk about that? When we choose the seasons, what operas we're going to be doing, popular ones, unusual ones, not popular ones?
Yeah, I think David Gockley should be the best guy to speak
General
about
Director,
that.
David Gockley.
Our General Director. I think that when we do a season, we have to balance between what it was, what is going to be, what will be. And in this particular season, end of season of 15, we have three stories, three operas that talk about two women. Because we have in Le Troyen, we have two women, Cassandra and Dido. In Nozze di Figaro, we have two women, Countess and Susanna. And in Two Women, we have two women. So, Cesira, Rosetta. And all the three operas are speaking about war. Because if you think the Civil War, if you think that we have the war of course, in the classic period with Le Troyen, we are very close to the French Revolution with Nozze di Figaro, and we are in the middle of the Second Global War and the Civil War also in Italy during the Second War. So I think that the choice is all the operas that we are doing this season are very well connected and very well balanced between classic, romantic, and modern ones. So this is how
I think it is a good example of this delicate balancing act of the 10 operas we do in a year. 3 of them come at this period in the summer, and we have something very familiar, The Marriage of Figaro. We have something unusual, rarely done. It's been over 40 years since we've done The Trojans because it's so immense, and then something brand new.
Yeah.
So it's important to have things to appeal to a wide variety of audiences. Is there another question out there?
Yes, first thank you for coming to talk to us. This is very interesting. So my question is related to the fact that La Ciociara is also a very famous movie by De Sica and Sophia Loren, and I think it got 1 or 2 Oscars. And Maestro Luisotti was talking about the ticket buying public. From my observation, I guess that a lot of the people coming to San Francisco probably went on a date to see in the 60s La Ciociara. So no doubt this is in their mind and kind of invites some comparison. It seems the opera follows the book less closely than the movie. But I'm curious how the movie influenced your thinking, your development. I mean, the fact that you know that people will no doubt have the movie in the back of their mind, a lot of them.
Thank you for that question. We should clarify, just to be sure, that the opera is officially based on the book, not the movie. But how did the movie influence the development of the opera?
Well, I don't know, but for Marco, for me, very little, in the sense that, of course, it's another language. You had Sophia Loren, you had De Sica. It was another time of our lives. So it's a beautiful movie, but if we have to translate it in an opera just as it is, it would be utterly boring, utterly. So we had to detach ourselves maximum we could, keeping what are the most important points, of course. But then it was really something that we left in our back, and for me it was an inspiration, like I was telling you about Giovanni, the first scene. The first scene in the movie is very good with Raffaele Ballone. It's very sexy, very nice, and they have this love affair. It was a very small love affair, but it's the beginning of the story. That was very, very, very important for me in writing this Giovanni, because it gives to Giovanni a different nuance. He's not an ogre. He's just a sexy fascist, let's put it this way. So in that sense, we have a lot of influence for the movie. But for the story, we had really to take another path and go away. And I don't know if Marco agrees with me.
Yes, I agree. But the movie, for me, it was important because when I wrote the music, I have to say that the eyes of Sophia were in my mind, and the character of Michele, Rosetta, and Sophia inspired my music because, you know, in the book there is a very cold description of facts. I need the movie to figure in the reality these characters. It's important to have a figure in front of you when you write music. It's very important because, you know, it's a different thing to write an aria for a literal imagination or a woman.
Abstract idea.
Yeah.
But you knew you were writing for Anna Caterina Antonacci. You had written an opera for her before.
Yeah.
Ideas.
Yes, of course. I knew that Anna Caterina would be the principal guest star, and I know very well her vocal characteristic, and her possibilities as an actress. And so also this knowledge is very important to me.
Is there another question out there?
Yes. First of all, from the previous guy's question, I've never heard of the movie before today. And also, I had the pleasure of seeing Anna Caterina last night, and I'm very much looking forward, in Les Troyens, looking forward to next week. But my question is kind of a difficult question, which is, I've been a long-time subscriber to San Francisco Opera, and over, let's say, 30 years, I have seen numerous premieres, numerous new operas come up, and most of them have been performed for about 2 or 3 years, and I've never seen them again. I've never heard of them again. About the only exception I can think of is Einstein on the Beach, which had its 25th. Are audiences just not interested? Are audiences like the novelty but don't want to support an opera beyond its opening night? I don't like the fact that opera seems to have gone to time of Puccini and then stopped, and nothing past Puccini has become part of our repertoire. How can we change that?
I'll dispute that statement. I think that we are actually in a kind of a golden age of American opera right now, and although it's true that as in the past, not every opera succeeds and becomes a standard. That is happening, and it's happened to pieces like Nixon in China, which is being done all the time around the country. Among the pieces that I've been directly involved with the world premieres of, A Streetcar Named Desire is done all the time. We did it, premiered here in '98, and we did it last summer in our Young Artist program. Dead Man Walking has been performed in more than 50 cities on 3 continents.
I'm thrilled to hear that both of those have.
Dr. Atomic fits in that category. And Appomattox, which is a Philip Glass piece we premiered, is going on to other productions. So, but of course, not every piece is a winner, and it takes a while to figure out which ones those are. And as Marco alluded to, time will only tell really what stays in the repertoire and what is only a temporary popular piece.
Would you like to clarify this part? It's very interesting what you said. And what you said too, because I said, I would like to refer to Italian operas, what I said, instead of the global world, because as you said, there are many American composers that are very successful, but we are missing Italian successful composer after Puccini. This was the word that can be performed all over the world. And the idea to perform another, to continue to the big Italian tradition of melodies is for this reason, to give another time, space to new generations of composers that are not scared to write melodies. Because today it sounds like if you write a melody, you have to be in the jail after the last note. And you are a bad guy because you have written something that the public will love. This is not good. So I think that Marco has written something that, at the premiere, we had an evidence.
He has to go to jail.
Yeah, we had 10 minutes of screaming people, and we had 10 minutes of standing ovation immediately after the last note. screaming. And when Marco went to in front of the audience, they were when they're screaming like he goes, and he became pale immediately. He was close to faint. Why? Because I think people need beauty. That's it. We need to go in the Yosemite and say, oh my God, what a beautiful sequoias. We don't want to see the sequoias like that, burned. We want to see something that's still alive. We want to just be shocked by the nature, by the beauty. Why not?
And by feelings.
And by the feeling, by the emotions. We are still alive. We are not machines. We are human beings that need beauty. So thanks to Marco Tutino to bring the beauty to San Francisco Opera.
Another question?
Yes, actually, this is very related to what you just said, but I just wanted to hear from the composer. Like, it sounds like one of the goals of the opera was to make it accessible and easier to sell tickets. But was it very constraining for the composer to do that, or how did that feel?
Yes. Do you feel constrained by the goal of making an opera that will be popular, that the audience will enjoy?
No, absolutely no. I tried in all my career to do something that may arrive to the public, and for me is yes. For me is natural. I'm not able to write music that is. I know that I'm writing only to please the critics and some friends of
academics.
them. Yes, and the academic world. I'm not able. It's my fault. I'm not able. So, for me, it's natural. I take the book, I take the libretto, I see it on the piano, and music arrives. It's not my responsibility. No, absolutely. The music arrives naturally. So I have only to choose in which way to put notes and where. But notes arrive by themselves. I'm not a creator, I'm a medium. So, really, it's very easy to me.
I have in mind, I don't know if you've never thought about this. Could you imagine Yesterday by John Lennon in dodecaphonic style? Now, tell me, if Yesterday was famous today, I like dodecaphonic style. I am a musician. I have studied dodecaphonic. I have written dodecaphonic when I was student of a composition.
This is 12-tone serialism.
Yes, a serious music. And I love this music, but it's my personal opinion because I understand that music. But as an audience, could you imagine go, and it's now I opened my broadcast radio and listen to Yesterday in the serious style. Yesterday, all my travels seem so far away. How is it possible you go to the bed remembering that? I think that we need to a little bit go back to go ahead again. I'm not telling go back to go back. Go back to the future. Go back and back to the future. So I think this is the way that I'm thinking to the operas. We have to be brave, bold. And I'm asking the composer, go back, get music from the movies, get music from new literature, do new shows, but please, please, write music that will remain in the future for the audience, for human being. One day we'll understand throughout microchips, we are in the right place, right? Microchips also sounds that are becoming from other parts of the universe. And that will be another day. But still today, we love Yesterday by John Lennon, as is written. So we will love also La Ciociara by Marco Tutino, as is written, believe me.
I think we have time for one more question.
It's a rare privilege for us to have access to the composer. I wanted to hear more about the composing process itself. Composers come from completely different traditions. Some could just sit down and write it, others take 15 years to write the work of their life. Some start from the beginning or end, a lot of iterations, or you might go back to work in some motifs back and forth. I wanted to hear about the process, what made this work so beautifully in the end. I'd like to hear more about the secrets if you're comfortable sharing.
So, Marco, about your compositional process, do you wait for
Oh,
the
my
words before you...
Well, the truth is that...
Don't tell the secret, don't tell the secret.
No, it's impossible. I try to explain. When I write music, when I finish to write music, and also in this case of this score, believe me, I completely forget all. I don't remember. I don't know why, and I don't know in which way I was able to write this. It's impossible for me to remember. It's a tragedy because every time that I have to start again to write, for me, I think, but I'm not able. It's absolutely impossible to write music. It's very difficult because you have to control a lot. You have to control rhythm, harmony, melodies, structures. Impossible. For me, it's impossible to. So, I simply sit down at the piano, as I told before, and I open a door. I really open a door. And there are days in which this door remains closed, and this day it's better to go to take a walk or to sleep or to whatever you want. But there are days in which the door opens and a river comes. And I don't know, I trust in this. I have to put the river in the right way, non so come si dice letto del fiume, bed. Oh, wonderful, the same in Italy.
It's very sexy,
okay.
Yes.
I put the river in his bed. And I tried that the river comes out. But it's all. The river is not my responsibility, as I told. So I really can say what are my process of composition, because if a composer has very present to himself which are the technique in which he wrote, I think that is not good. It's not good because while you are writing, you put this consciousness in the score. And if the public feel that you are thinking about your techniques, you are finished. So you have to absolutely forget. Don't remember everything.
This is Google. I have to ask this follow-up question. Do you do your composition and orchestration by hand, or do you use software?
I compose at the piano with a very technological instrument that is a pencil and a pen and a
sheet of paper.
Yes, a sheet of paper, white, and with 5 lines. It's a very clever system. Absurd. But when I've finished this first fixing of ideas, I have to put in the computer. Yes, because in this way I can hear more or less what I have just done. And I
You can
use
play a MIDI, version.
Finale, like the software is Finale, and I use Apple, a wonderful iMac.
And he was sending to me the scores. Every time he was writing a scene, he was sending to me the score. I was, of course, hearing the music by the program, but also, of course, reading in another very modern technological instrument. This is the piano. I was putting my piano, I was playing with my technological hands, and it worked perfectly. And all the time he was sending me the music. He said, "Nicola, it's not me that he's writing. It's not me. It's not me." He was like, it was beautiful, that process of a composition, because he don't remember, but I remember, because I followed for 2 years every single passage of this. One day in my bio, I will write that.
I think we're at the end of our time, but before we conclude, I do want to remind people that San Francisco Opera will be doing one of its free annual simulcasts at AT&T Park on Saturday, July 3rd. It's a Friday. Friday, July 3rd at 7:30. It's free. You can sign up by just going to sfopera.com and give us your email address, and that'll get you early admission. And you can come and sit anywhere you like and picnic if you like. And it's opera and garlic fries. What could be better than that? Thank you all for doing this, my fellow panelists, and thank you, Google, for inviting us. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.